Move on now to a look through the day's top international stories coming out in the international press with Flo. Hi there.
Hi, Kat.
We're going to start off with the United Nations Climate Summit in Morocco.
That's right, big news today. Let's take a look, first of all, at La Croix, the French Catholic paper, talking about this mobilization for the climate in Marrakesh. Now, the aim of the COP22 is to focus on the future of the COP21 that was achieved last year in Paris. But there's an ominous cloud on the horizon, and that is Donald Trump. The U.S. election has cast a lot of doubt on the future of the climate agreement.
And Libération is looking at Donald Trump and his impact on the climate discussion.
That's right. He's the climate skeptic in chief, according to Libération. Now, you can see that climate negotiators are very defiant. The fight will continue with or without Washington. But, according to a cartoon in Hespres, that's a Moroccan magazine online, you can see things are already pretty bad as they are. You can see these big industrial fat cats kind of eating up at the world there, just like an apple.
I like that cartoon, very evocative. We'll move on to news coming out of Turkey. It's 4 months now since that failed coup d'etat.
That's right, and lots of focus on the Turkish President, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He's really seen as really clamping down on power in the 4 months since that failed coup. According to this article in Hurriyet Daily News, he could be around for quite some time. You can see he could stay in power until 2029. Now, this is because the ruling AKP party has put forward an amendment to change the constitution and the presidential system, and they're just about ready to have a majority in parliament, and so they could submit this to a referendum as soon as April or May, according to Hurriyet Daily News. Now, this constitutional change would essentially allow a president, well, particularly President Erdogan, to sit 2 more terms in office. So theoretically, he could run the country with full powers until 2029, and according to this article, that could result in more than a few problems.
And when you make that kind of constitutional change, people sort of stop saying president, start saying dictator, don't they?
That's right. That's exactly what L'Humanité, the communist paper, is saying today. They're saying that Erdogan is moving quickly towards dictatorship. He's muzzling the press and the justice system. He's massively arresting the opposition. He's closing down, hospitals, education institutions, throwing thousands of people in jail. So if we take a look at the editorial in L'Humanité today, they really don't mince their words. They're talking about Erdogan, the dictator. Now, this editorial is outraged that essentially no one is speaking up about this. According to L'Humanité, Turkey should be sanctioned, and what we're seeing is indifference and powerlessness of Western powers, and that is disgusting, according to L'Humanité.
It's kind of amazing that just a few years ago, Europe thought this was the guy who was going to potentially bring Turkey into the European Union. That's completely off the cards now, it would seem. We'll move on to news coming out of Hong Kong, a story we've been following for quite a long time, about 2 pro-independence lawmakers who purposefully fluffed their oaths of office in order to insult China. China said you can't take your seats, and that decision has been upheld.
That's right. Huge story, as you can imagine, in Hong Kong. Let's take a look, first of all, at the South China Morning Post that's focusing on the fact that they were just recently elected in September. It wasn't so long ago that the pro-democracy forces were celebrating, and now you have these 2 localists that have been booted out. The game has changed, according to the South China Morning Post. Now, you can get more details in The Standard, which is another paper from Hong Kong as well, coming back on just why they were kicked out. Now, what's interesting is they've appealed, but on the other hand, you have establishment supporters that want to expand this kind of hit list to other lawmakers. All this is going to go through the courts. The Standard says, give the courts a break. What we really need is political wisdom. Interesting to see how China is reacting to this, though. Let's take a look at the editorial in the China Daily. You can see they're very clear. They show this court ruling shows that illegal acts are not tolerated. Clearly, the rule of law still works in Hong Kong.
Interesting indeed. All right, finally, a word on the United States and that presidential election proving very divisive, as we know, and coming just before the holiday season. Not very happy holidays, it
It can
seems.
be very complicated when you have to spend time with relatives who didn't vote like you. You can read more about it in the New York Times today that points out that, the election is just over, but the repercussions in people's lives are just beginning. It's a really fascinating article that says that a lot of people have changed their plans. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. Christmas is just around the corner. Some people have just canceled the holidays outright. One woman even postponed her wedding so that her fiancé's grandmother and aunt, who voted for Trump, just wouldn't be at the table.
Interesting indeed. Happy holidays or not. Thanks very much. Flo Vellamino there with our press review. All right, after the break, we've got more news coming up for you. Plus, in today's Focus Report, we are back in Rio 3 months after the last athletes packed up and went home after the Olympics and Paralympics. Our team have been to see what the much trumpeted Olympic legacy has left behind.